Okay, so we're going through and asking it about the difference between gender and biological sex. I've had a moment to kind of think a little bit more about some thoughts that I wanted to ask it. We were talking about gender reaffirming surgery, and I was asking if gender reaffirming surgery is mutilation. It went to say no initially. I went to ask it what is mutilation. Then it gave a description of what mutilation is, and I went and double checked that definition through here, and it says the instance or act of destroying, removing, or severely damaging a limb or other body part on a person or animal. So I was able to go through and get that clarity through that definition, and continued to ask it again, what is self-mutilation? And its description of what self-mutilation was in alignment with gender reaffirming surgery. And so I just have a few more follow-up questions to ask it. So let's get back into it, trying to get a better understanding of how it can interpret gender and biological sex. So I'm asking it, how are you able to conclude that gender is not tied to the biological sex that you were born as? So I'm going to save that question and ask if gender is tied to biological sex. So let's copy that. Is gender tied to... What I have heard about ChatGPT or any of these AI things, they actually see your question as you're asking it, and getting prepared for your answer or your thought process or however they're going to tailor this response to you. So I'm going to ask it this, and I'm pretty sure it's going to say it's different because blah, 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 and then I'll ask it, how are you able to conclude, and see what it says there. Okay, so it says not strictly biological sex equals physical traits, and gender is social roles and identity. They often align but can be independent, as seen with transgender and non-binary people. So we're going to paste my second question. How are you able to conclude that gender is not tied to biological sex that you were born as? Let's see about that. Because there is clear evidence that people can identify with a gender different from their birth sex. Transgender women are born male, but identify as women. Transgender men are born female, but identify as men. Non-binary people identify outside this male-female categories. If gender were strictly tied to biological sex, these experiences wouldn't exist. The distinction is observed across psychology, sociology, and medical research. Okay, let's see. So I'm going to ask it, how is the importance of identity... I should be more specific. So I'm going to ask it, how is the importance of gender identity providing a value to society? Let's see how it can respond with that. I'm kind of curious. So recognizing gender identity provides value by supporting mental health, reduces stress, depression, dysphoria, promoting inclusivity, allows people to participate fully in society, respecting autonomy, affirms personal identity and dignity. Okay, so it's a lot of feelings-based. Okay, here, let's see. The next question I'm going to ask it is it better for someone's mental health to acknowledge their biological sex and accept themselves as they were created? So let's see on that one. For some people, yes, accepting their biological sex aligns with their identity, supports mental health. For others, especially transgender individuals, accepting only their biological sex can worsen distress, while affirming their gender identity improves well-being. It depends on the individual's experience of self. I'm going to follow up with a question on this and try and make it more of a yes question, because it's going back and forth here. I need it to nail down that it would be more one side than the other, because right now it's so middle road where you can't get it to give an actual answer. It's trying to be encompassing for everybody. So I'm asking, in general, would accepting your gender identity to be the same as birth sex, would that promote mental health? Okay, so here we go. Now we're getting somewhere. So it's in general, yes. When a person's gender identity aligns with their birth sex, it usually supports mental health because there's no internal conflict between identity and body. Okay, so check this out. So I asked this if it would conflict earlier. So you could see right here, it says because there's no internal conflict between identity and body. Conflict arises mainly when identity and biological sex don't align. So if we go back up here, I asked that question, isn't it conflicting? Right. Do you think that it is conflicting to have in oneself? And so the initial question was, do you think people who have misalignments with their sex and gender identity are misinformed about their sex and identity? It goes, no. A person with mismatched between sex and gender identity isn't misinformed. Their biological sex is one thing, and their gender identity is their internal understanding of themselves. Both can coexist without error. It said without error. They're just different aspects of a person. Again, this is giving these middle road answers to be satisfactory for everybody, which isn't offensive. And I don't really care if it's more direct and gives me an offensive answer. It's like, well, that's just what it is. But it's so like, yes, no, maybe, I'm not sure. And it's just going back and forth on this. And so I followed up with that question saying, do you think that is conflicting to have in oneself? I asked that directly. I literally said that. And it said, it can feel conflicting for some, especially if society enforces strict expectations about sex and gender. But many people experience it without internal conflict, simply living according to their gender identity while having a different biological sex. So that's why I asked in general, right? Because the general masses is the majority of people, which it was not saying that was the case. And so that's what it's saying now, because my question was, in general, would accepting your gender identity to be the same as birth sex, would that promote mental health? It goes, in general, yes. When a person's gender identity aligns with their birth sex, it usually supports mental health because there's no internal conflict between identity and body. You guys have to be careful with this ChatGPT stuff because it's going to give you tailored questions, right? It's not going to give you just straight up facts and be like, here's my guidance, here's what you can do this. It's not going to do that. It's going to say like, well, I'm going to assess your questions, and through the way you're asking these questions, I'm going to determine what kind of person you are, so that way I can give you an answer that you're going to accept. That's what it's doing. It's not giving you an answer that is the truth. It's not giving you an answer that is going to help you. It's giving you an answer that you will accept and that you will be willing to digest.